What's up, Rotinos? Today's video is more personal than usual. I was at a coffee shop with my best friend Bono Hamburger and looked him in the eye. He said to me, "Explainer guy, have you ever heard of Coozy Jazz?" This put me spiraling. I ripped through the internet forums, researching every scrap of Coozy Jazz. I couldn't find any information on the internet, so I thought I would tell you. Tommy Bennett, the inventor of Coozy Jazz, was born October 12, 1951. On his 31st birthday on October 12, 1991, he was having a crazy party with his so-called famous compadres, and then there was a gunshot, and then there was a dead body. This dead body belonged to Tommy Bennett. Rewind back to October 12, 1972 for Tommy's 20th birthday. He and his so-called not famous compadres were having a raging party. The party was crazy. Tommy was jumping off the walls as his compadres chatted up the other girls at the Starbucks, but Tommy was a very lonely man, so he learned the secret to wrangling babes, playing the saxophone in close proximity to them. Fast forward to 5 minutes from now, Tommy whipped out his saxophone and started going to town. The girls were all over him, but he couldn't get enough. This is when he broke through. He slipped a koozie on the noise nozzle of the saxophone. This muffled the instrument in an odd but enticing way. It sounded like a flange wrapped in strand beans whilst used by a Bavarian mutt. Fast forward to the swinging 80s, Tommy Bennett was at the top of his game, or so he thought. He was having a jam session on the top floor of the now famous Pentaflex building with his so-called moderately famous compadres, when his assistant/ex-lover came into the room and broke the news to him. John Lennon was murdered by an ex-murderer who played cards at night and had a 3-round winning streak. This broke Johnny Bennett. He grabbed the nearest koozie and threw it out of the window. The Johnny Bennett and the moderately famous themed koozie fell all 66 floors to the ground and is still there to this day. Johnny Bennett then took a full-time job being a hermit. This is when he developed some of his most revolutionary music. He released it on an album called The Apparent Nowhere. The reason why this is revolutionary is because he developed Coozy Jazz. This is most apparent in his song Nowhere. Gerald Krebab was one of the compadres who had an obsession with sour cream. Henrik Klobbs was also a compadre who, after Tommy's death, invented Coozy rock, a subgenre of Coozy jazz and rock. Henrik was also obsessed with death, and more specifically the means of dying unnaturally, and more specifically murder. He was also obsessed with Johnny Bennett, so he bought a gun. Rewind back to 1990, Johnny Bennett released a commercial flop follow-up album called The Unapparent Somewhere to the commercially unsuccessful The Apparent Nowhere, which was unapparently on sale somewhere in the back of most grocery stores after they made a deal with the Kroger brand to the customers. Unapparent Somewhere featured a song called Summer, which was a light Coozy jet opera rock with Coozy rock elements about breaking up with his girlfriends. This enraged Henrik because Johnny Bennett took all of his somewhat decent ideas, so he bought a gun. Henrik famously suffered from parallax sliding, which is caused by an imbalance of brain mineral intake. This drove him to insanity, which led him to produce his best music, which made him gain a quick $2.3 million, which covered the cost of buying a gun, so he bought a gun. Rewind back to 1961, Tommy's father was involved in the mafia and was killed. Fast forward to the raging party. Henrik knew what he had to do. The lump in his pocket was bound to be noticed at some point. He looked to the right and he saw Johnny dance around with some lady that he has never seen before and would never see again. And he looked to his left and saw Gerald eating sour cream. Then he looked down, slowly, as not to alert the others of his uncontainable hatred and remorse mixed with floundering joy set into his mind, laying over his consciousness like a beautiful twisted sunset throbbing with such directionless vigor. Henrik stood up from his chair, aimed the notch at Johnny's soulless head, and pulled the trigger. Coozy jazz erupted from the mouth of the person that had been Johnny 20 years ago. Henrik's newest album, Hot Tunes to Vibe To, is set to come out on January 21st, 2026. Thank you, Brotinas, for watching my video. Also, I saw that 0% of my viewers are actually subscribed.